All right, women's basketball fans. We are here to talk about the Seattle Storm on this episode of Tempestage Talk, which will include going over the draft once more and first reactions from Roberta Rodrigues, who was at the first day of training camp.
You have three people who are selfless like that, three people who are dangerously disciplined like that, and you have a coach that also embodies all of those characteristics. You can expect good basketball.
I love interacting with the fans. I'm excited for them to cheer for us because it's hell when you come here. I even welcome people that could be skeptical because it's new.
There's going to be a standard of excellence and discipline in everything that we do.
The Pacific Northwest, this area, how passionate they are. It's culture everywhere, but it's great culture here. That's what I want to be a part of, to compete for a championship. That's everybody's goal. And I think it's just how we go about things and habits that we create. I want to be around winners. That'll help us get closer to that.
And that's what the fans can expect. And we're going to have some fun.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Tempestage Talk. That means tempestage, I should say, is the Portuguese word for storm. So this is Storm Talk, a podcast for Seattle Storm fans, part of Black Rosie Media. My name is Erica L. Ayala. I am one of your hosts here, but also the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we aim to empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. We also have our Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans show that we will be recording, Brian and I, tomorrow. And we'll give you more details now that we are going to be back to every week. Each one of our shows will run because training camp has officially started. That's right. The Seattle Storm and WNBA teams, all WNBA teams, have started training camp. That, of course, means we have our training camp rosters, including those players who were drafted. And, I think the Seattle Storm had a pretty good draft. They, of course, did go with Malunga at the number 2 position. I think there are definitely still some things that this team probably wants to fill. Can they do it through their training camp roster? Will they have to do it with some other moves? Are they just kind of waiting things out? I mean, these are all questions that we have to figure out and answer for this Storm team. And Roberta Rodrigues, I know, is on her way back from the first day of training camp. And so we'll have some more insights there. But let's just first talk about the Seattle Storm and the WNBA draft. I mentioned they take Dominique Malonga overall at second overall, excuse me. And there was a lot of back and forth with Olivia Miles, who was the Storm going to pick. Malunga seemed like the obvious choice. Now, Roberta and I have already talked about this, but originally, or born, I should say, in Cameroon, Malunga has played for Lyon basketball and has played for the French national team, including at the Paris Olympics in 2024. But, she comes in at a really good height. She is 6'6", 19 years old, has already dunked in Euro League play, and has a really great upside. I guess the question is she the right pick for the Seattle Storm at this point in time? It's hard to say because, as we've talked about both with Brian on this program, as we've talked about with Roberta on this program, you want to get, especially at number 2, the best player available. And I think Malunga probably that. Although Kurt Miller, who is now with Dallas, had some interesting things to say at their press conference, which included I believe 2 of their draft picks, not just Paige Becker's. But I think that, what Kurt Miller was saying is that he feels like in a few seasons, sorry, I have a eyelash stuck in my eyelashes. Anyway, he felt that in a few years or even after this season, if this draft class was redrafted, some outlets will do that. They'll go back and redraft an entire draft class. He felt that you would see that things would be a little bit different because the question kind of teed him up to talk about, well, there was a lot of international talent, Malunga among them, that went early in the draft. I thought that was an interesting comment. I guess we'll see. But is Malunga someone that you're gonna regret at number 2? It just seems like it kinda gives you a little bit of an insurance policy with Malunga, but she, of course, is among the players that, have showed up for training camp for the Seattle Storm. And that we've talked about Lee Yuru a little bit on this show. Zaya Cook also at training camp. Erica Wheeler, Alicia Clark. We've talked about Ezzy Magbagor, Gabby Williams, Nneka Ogwumike. Those 3 players are also the most interesting. I am most interested to see how Malunga interacts with those 3 players because I think that her game can learn a lot from being around those players. I think she has some aspects and elements that each of them has perfected. And it's going to be curious to see what kind of becomes like her go-to because she has a lot of versatility. So being able to grow around Ogwumike, Magbagor, and Williams, I find really interesting for Malunga. Anyway, also on this training camp roster, Serena Sundell, I got to speak to her at the draft with CBS Sports. Lexi Brown, very unique story with some of the health concerns that she's had. And, very curious to see what she's able to offer. I mentioned Zaya Cook, Madison Connor, Jordan Hobbs. I mentioned Lee Yuru already, Brianna Frazier, Mackenzie Holmes. Katie Lou Samuelson is another player that I think is interesting. Oh, I see this comment. Why wear a Kraken hat at a Storm show? Well, it's my hat, so I wanted to wear this hat. So yeah, thanks, Peggy. Anyway, so I think the training camp roster is interesting, but does it offer everything that this Storm team needs? Well, let's go to an expert that was boots on the ground today at training camp to find out about that and a few other things. Roberta Rodrigues in the house.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? Am I too loud? Is it good? Okay. The reason why I'm late is because I was at Storm training camp. It's been a chaotic day and I'll probably just it takes me like 5 to 7 minutes to get to the practice facility. Like I got really lucky when we found this place where we live in now. So it's usually very quick, and I don't know if Erica, you're familiar with Ballard Bridge.
Yes.
The stupid Ballard Bridge is closed.
No.
So the Ballard Bridge is what makes my way to the practice facility
Easy.
So quick.
Yeah.
It is closed for a spring improvement. So I had to go all the way around to Fremont Bridge. So it usually takes me 5 to 7 minutes. It took me 15 minutes to get there. The GPS said it was going to be 20 minutes to come back. It was way more than 20 minutes.
Wow.
But I am here.
We love it. Thank you.
If I go off camera, it's because I'm shoving some bread and because I haven't eaten anything. But yeah, I was at the store.
Well, great that
no,
you're
of
here.
course. I'm happy that I'm here. So I'm hyped that the training camp has started. The training camp has started in general for the league. It's just such an exciting time to see all of the teams coming together, everyone having the players in market. And when we think of like all the good and the bad of prioritization, the good is that you do get the players here. So not only you get a lot of familiarization with the team gets familiarized with each other, us media get more chances to familiarize with players. So that's pretty cool. The only player that's missing to get here for the Storm is Dominique Malonga. Someone did ask head coach Noel Quinn when she's going to be here. I have to go back into my notes, but she should be here soon. Everyone else was there, including Nika Mule. She was taking some shots, and she looked really good. She looked very confident. We all know now that she's going to be suspended for the season because of her injury. But from an outside look, it does look like things are moving forward with her. Now, I'll go on another rant, and maybe Erica is going to understand me here, because media availability was supposed to start at 2 p.m. With media being allowed in at 1:30. At around like 1:05, I got a text from the Storm PR saying that, like, oh, it looks like we're going to finish earlier at around 1:30. I was already leaving, and it's quick for me to get there, so I got there at 1:30. Media availability had started at 1:15. So, yeah, I got only like 15 minutes, and another outlet got there much later than me and got like 5 minutes. So that was frustrating because didn't get to see practice. I was going to talk to Ezzy to get a feel of how she's feeling. I was going to talk to Erica Wheeler to see how her adaptation to Seattle has been. Didn't have a chance to talk to them. I did talk to NECA, and we did hear head coach Noel Quinn. She's very positive, so I'll see if I can get a little earlier tomorrow. Tomorrow is a media day, so I'll see if I can get a little earlier to get a little bit of practice of their practice time, just to get a feel of what things look like. But today, unfortunately, there wasn't even like a chance to do that, because I was just very frustrated, because from 1:15 to 2 p.m. it's a very different. And I don't know what Erica thinks, because Erica is media also, and as media we expect to have we are supposed to have access to certain things. So that was the downside for today, but players all seemed very in good spirits. They seemed to be well connected. When I got there, they were doing free throws. And according to Noel Quinn is very happy with what she's seeing. She said that she does see a lot of leadership in NECA and Skylar, and that their transition into the leadership role is going to be much smoother this season, because they're not learning. They don't have to pair off-court leadership with learning new tactics.
Okay, that's why it's going to be smoother. Okay, I was curious.
Yeah. So head coach Noel Quinn was talking to us. It's really cool also, as we were talking to them, because the practice facility has the gym open to the court, and we got to see there was something on a TV screen that said Jackbox scoreboard, and there was Skylar Diggins, there was Katie Lou Samuelson at some point, there was Rain 100, and the names. It seems like they have some internal competition during practice to incentivize players during the drills, and almost like to increase competition. I saw that, and I asked Noel Quinn, and she said that they did implement that during drills, which I find very cool and very interesting. Whether like it or not, it's a job, and for every job you need incentives.
So it's kind of like they set up like an internal leaderboard, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's an internal leaderboard.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That is really cool. And so it's for the whole practice, not just like the half court shot. Because like a lot of times we see the half court shots, right? As media, we're able to come in around that time.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there are other things also throughout a practice where you can effectively earn points.
Yeah, it seems like there are different types of shots and drills that are being taken into consideration for the leader box. Not leader box. I'm thinking about my cat. The leaderboard. So I want to expand on that and ask Noel Quinn. It is very on par for what we see from Noel Quinn's kind of leadership. She always finds ways to encourage and empower players. And even in the corporate world, we know that there are little things that you can do um, to find better production for your players. And in basketball, better production may lead to championships. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you're definitely taking us through the whole thing, but let's take this in bite
yeah,
sizes and
I
organize
just
it a
got
little
here, so I like, woo.
Yeah, I know. We appreciate you coming on, and so grateful that you could join, give us boots on the ground. But let's first, I talked a little bit about Malunga, and Brian and I also talked about the draft overall, especially talked about Seattle in our last episode. We did it under Tempestage talk because we knew we were going to talk about Malunga, but we know that there was a little a conflict created by me because I didn't know what day it was. But let's just go back to the draft. We talked about we thought it was going to be Malunga, but you said she's the right pick and she doesn't give this team. I'm paraphrasing what you said. You were basically saying that she was the right pick given what was available and that it still didn't solve all of the problems for the Seattle Storm. But let's go beyond Malunga. Were there any other picks that you found surprising, that you think are great for the Storm? What did you feel about the draft overall?
I think that what you said now, that it was the right pick, but it was not an immediate need pick. They did trying to pick up the other names here because they did get the guard from TCU, who Serena Sando from Kansas State, and Madison Carter from TCU. And those are players who could potentially add to that need from the Storm on the number 2 position. But to be fair and looking into, to be very honest and looking into the training camp roster, the salary sheet cap, I don't think those players are going to stay. And the general feeling, I was talking to some media members, it like the idea seems that Lexi Brown is going to be the starting shooting guard. So I do still think that the Storm that's going to be the Storm Achilles heel, and that's not that's not a reflection of Lexi Brown. It's a reflection of the league overall. We're talking about, there was Jewel Lloyd, an all-star who could shoot over 20 points per game. We haven't seen that from Lexi Brown yet. And the league has teams with players who are ready for that kind of performance.
Yeah, well, I talk all the time about how I think this league is short of true one guards, but it's probably just backcourt overall. It's a very specialty. It almost is like a delicacy now, right? If you can get an experienced guard that's playing in their true position. You mentioned the salary sheet. I just wanted to pull this up. We can come to it in a minute, but I'm concerned. I alluded to it in the opening, but Lexi, too many combo guards. Thank you, Moni. Yes, too many combo guards in the W right now. Not enough specialty guards. But I think with Lexi, I don't honestly know if a 1 or 2 position is her go-to. I think she's played a lot of different roles, and she hasn't been healthy. And that her situation, it's that this is the tough part of sports, right? Because we are talking about how she hasn't been healthy because it leads to inconsistency in her playing, right? And her ability. But it's not because of an injury, not that that's, quote unquote, any better, but it's because she's been dealing with an illness, right? And that makes it tough from a human perspective to talk about. And from a basketball perspective, you have to think that those are things that the Storm have thought through, right? So if she does have flare-ups, it's Crohn's, right, that she's dealing with.
I think that's it. Yes.
Yeah. it's to do with, well, anyway, I believe it's Crohn's, and
Yeah, it's Crohn's disease.
yeah. And so, it can be very, yeah, Crohn's, it flares up at any given time. And so very uncomfortable because it's dealing with your internal tract, your gut, things like that. But how does that impact, especially if you, as you said, you were talking to other media members, she's going to be the starting two, but then what are you getting off of the bench, and is that person poised and ready to do that? Are you going to have to lean on another player? But who is that player? Do you then move? Is it Skylar Diggins that moves to the two, and then you give Wheeler? What goes on there? I think it still seems like a little bit of a hole, and perhaps you have Gabby. You have Gabby that can play 1 through 4, probably even a little 5. She's like the Sophie Cunningham, right? Of the
French Army knife.
Basketball perspective wise, just specific to that. I'm not calling her the Sophie Cunningham.
Oh my God.
No, but remember that year with Phoenix where Sophie Cunningham was legitimately playing like 3, maybe even at times 4 different positions. I mean, I like Gabby can be your shooting guard, but why?
Here's the thing. I don't see
Skylar.
a world in which Skylar would move to the number 2 position.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and Lexi is expected to play as number 2. That's why they brought in Erica Wheeler for a backup number 1 for Sky. So Lexi is expected to play number 2. The problem, I don't think the problem, not a problem, but issue would be the defense. I think that she would be a great defender against Jewel and other high-producing shooting guards. But when we're talking about scoring, that's where I think it's the Storm is going to be on a lower level from other teams. Now, they are also in a different position that they have more scoring support. Skylar Diggins-Smith, we know that she can move the ball around and she can score. Gabby Williams, a scorer. Neko Gumake, a scorer. Ezzy, a scorer. So is the Storm in a position that they can have a lower scoring shooting guard who's probably going to be an edge on defense and rely on her for that and focus that scoring production on the other players? Because with the Storm, we have gotten so used to seeing a backcourt production, or like high production backcourt, then maybe now they're going to be playing more in the paint. It's completely new. It's a completely new world.
So Moni thinks it is going to be more well-rounded. Agrees with you that the starting lineup would be Skylar, Lexi, Gabby, Ezzy, Nneka. But let's take a look, right, at who else is on this roster, and maybe it points to some of the versatility that Moni is talking about. I think it's potential because I agree with you. You're not going to get the same scoring from Lexi Brown that you've seen in the backcourt before, but you do have AC. So you have Clark, who's coming off of the bench. You have Katie Lou Samuelson. You have Erica Wheeler. And then, you have Zaya Cook as well, Victoria Vivians. But who is more realistic to step up? Who can really have that scoring touch? Because I think the rest of the bench is going to be by committee. And while there's nothing wrong with that, Roberta, and I'm going to let you snack for a little longer, so no rush. But the thing that's wrong with that from my perspective is that, I didn't think so either. I don't know why she's on I saw it on listed there, but I didn't think Vivian's was still there. So thank you, Moni. I did just read that, but I was kind of like, wait, what? But anyway, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But what we're also seeing and where the WNBA is that you need players that can come off of the bench and be productive. So I don't know. I don't know if that's enough of a bench to make the kind of push that this Seattle Storm team needs to make. And so that for me, Roberta, is the question mark here, is that even if you do go by committee to get some additional scoring, is it going to be versatile enough? I think let's start with AC and Katie Lou Samuelson. I think because, right, oops. With Clark, you're definitely bringing someone who can give you some offense. But as New York Liberty fans know, in 2024, we saw that AC can definitely still shoot. Now, we've seen her on this team before. I think her role is probably going to be similar to what she's played before. And I think that now the Storm knows, but so does the rest of the league, that she actually has more versatility than we saw the last time that she was in Seattle.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that Clark and Lou are going to bring that scoring from the bench that the Storm struggled with a little bit last year. I do think that they have a better bench in 2025 than they did in 2024. And they also have a more, even like, everything seems a little more consistent with the team right now. Talking about the starters, of course, we don't know who the starters are going to be.
Yeah, and and we'll get to that. But specifically, I want to know what your thoughts are on Clark and Katie Lou Samuelson, because I think you're right that this could be a more versatile bench, and I think it depends. And I think it really depends on what you get offensively from those two players. So let's start with Clark. Mm-hmm. What do you like about what she can bring offensively to the Storm?
I like that she can open up the floor and provide more options for Skylar to dish the ball to, and to give Ezzy and NECA more room in the paint. I think that she's a player who is going to attract attract defenders, and who's going to give more room to other players to act, because she is she's a veteran now. She's been in the league for a long time, so we're not talking about the Alicia Clark who won the championship with the Storm a few years ago, but we're talking about an Alicia Clark that is still extremely valuable for any team that she's in. She did that with the Aces recently. She did that with the Liberty, and she's very familiar with Noel Quinn and Seattle as a whole. So I think that she's going to bring that. She's going to bring scoring. I do think that she's going to add a good chunk of scoring from the bench. And we're not talking defense now, but that's something very special that she brings in. And having good defenders on the bench is very important.
Yeah.
So I think that she's going to help with the scoring and with opening the floor for other players.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think she definitely can do that, because AC is someone who can definitely score from the perimeter. You talk about opening up the paint. She can also play in the paint. That's how she, came up in basketball. She'll be the first to talk about it. I do wonder, I mentioned 2024 again. New York Liberty fans know very well what AC was able to do in that series against Vegas, not just in the finals, but honestly, there were a few games where she was really lethal. And 2025 was a down year for the Aces, obviously. But I think that the consistency is a little bit of a question for me still with AC, just based on, again, how
it's a fair question.
Performed. Yeah, and I think when you get AC that's firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball, you are very grateful to have her. Even if the offense isn't there, you're still grateful to have her because of what she can do defensively. But I think my question is, and this is why I want to talk about Katie Samuelson as well, because to me, AC can't be your sixth woman from an offensive perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if Katie Lou Samuelson can be that either. I think that that was the hope when she came into the league. She's moved around, been a part of a few wild trades. But and I know we've talked about it in the Slack channel. I don't think she was particularly fit when she started Athletes Unlimited. Or excuse me, not Athletes Unlimited, Unrivaled. She was in Unrivaled. But I don't know. I think she's more of a sure thing offensively if, and this is a capital I, capital F, if she is in rhythm offensively. But again, that's not something that we've necessarily seen in the last handful of seasons.
No, and you're absolutely right. I think that there were some very high expectations for Katie Lou Samuelson when she came into the league. She had an amazing career with UConn, and I think she got injured when she started the league. I'm not sure. I know that it was a rocky start for her. She really struggled with getting her foot wet, and up until today, she hasn't really established herself as a key player on a team as a starter.
Right.
I do think that that's what was envisioned from her when she was drafted, that eventually she was going to be a starter in the league. She was going to be one of the main scorers. But we look into her stat sheet through the years, she still averages in single digits, and she has never had a season where she averaged in double digits for scoring. So she's still. It's really it kind of sucks, but she still has something to prove in the league. She still has to prove herself. The WNBA website says that she has a 5-year experience. Why does it feel like more? I feel like it's more. But so I think there's time for her
she's coming
to
into
get there.
season 6. Just
Yeah, definitely
completed seasons. But came into the league, as you mentioned, was with Chicago, Dallas in 2021. That's when we saw her with Seattle. Was with the Sparks, was with Indiana. On average, she is averaging, less than 10 points per game. And that, to me, again, is that enough for a number 6 or even a number 7 player off of the Seattle Storm bench offensively? That means, to me, Roberta, unless we get a little bit more maybe than what we're thinking. And again, we've talked about Nneka's averages, right? I thought her offense was a little down as far as the output, the numbers. I think her presence offensively and her importance in the offense, those sometimes are different things. That's why I believe in the eye test. But I think you and I agree that she was integral for the offense, even though she wasn't the option. I don't know. But I think that you need to make sure that Nneka's going. You need to make sure that Sky is going. You need to make sure that Gabby is going. Gabby, I love her. I love her game overall. And we've also seen low offensive outputs for her as well. I guess what I'm saying overall, the more that I think about it, and someone kind of dinged me for wearing a Seattle Kraken hat. First of all, this is the Seattle Kraken. It's the OG season and the OG Black hockey history hat. So yeah, I wear this hat literally all the time because I freaking love it.
I've seen you with it all the time, and it's Seattle.
It's Seattle, and it's got the green. I love this logo. I'm always gonna wear this. I don't actually own a Storm hat. Also,
I was thinking about that. We need to get someone to send you one.
I'll be in Seattle hopefully enough times. This is a complete sidebar. So this is now my second sidebar or tangent. But my tangent number 2 is, if you listen to my hockey coverage, then you know that we are likely very close to there being an expansion team for the PWHL, and the expansion city number 2 being Seattle. So Last I heard, we might get an announcement by like Wednesday or something.
Oh,
So
that's true.
yeah,
That's
but if
true.
that happens, I've been telling people, I feel like that Seattle's one of those cities where I'm like, even
Yeah.
before I moved from New York, I was like, I could maybe think there's like 3 or 4 cities that I'm considering Seattle one of them. If Seattle gets a women's hockey team, I don't know, I might have to
Someone call the NHL and get that team right now.
I might have to be on the first thing smoking. But anyway, the reason I wanted to mention the Seattle Kraken, now back to my original tangent, is because the issue that we're having with that roster is that you've got some great veterans. Obviously, they were an expansion team. The Seattle Storm are very far from being an expansion team, although they once were. But it's the wrong mix right now for the Seattle Kraken of veterans and new experience, and not enough offensive firepower. So you like the people on the team, they most of the time work really hard, and it's more about the construction and asking these players to do more than really they've ever done in their career. And on the one hand, sometimes players want that experience, right? They want to come to a team where they can have a larger role. But you also have to have a balance. So I think we're going from, that's my concern, I should say, with the Storm this year. And I think they'll figure it out. But my concern with the Storm this year is that they have too many pieces that are potential breakouts and not enough surefire breakouts, if that makes sense.
I know. It's actually very interesting. I had never considered that angle, that we're talking about a group of veterans that have had very significant contributions in previous teams, but we need to see a little bit more from them this year.
Exactly.
I do wonder if with Skylar and NECA starting the season without that uncertainty of it's something new, I'm learning, if that's going to ignite them to have that that type of presence. I think that could be one factor that would propel them to have, they're like very solid veterans, but not to quote Diana Taurasi, but
now retired. So wild.
Yeah, so I think that they can a veteran such as Skylar, can we say that a veteran like that can have a breakout season? No, right? Breakout in English,
so.
like or is
no, I think so. Like a breakout is just that, right? You're separating yourself. So again, when you're a player, this is why people were like, well, you can't be a number 1 draft pick or a number 1 draft pick, or some people believe that you can't be a first round draft pick and be like most improved or things like that. And to me, I think that that's not fair. I think you have to compare a player in some respects, like for most improved, from season to season. Because if you're Michael Jordan and then we get Michael Jordan infinity the next year, no one's outperforming you. You have improved upon the standard of excellence, And so are you going to say that that's not most improved? I think some people would, because they don't like the idea of rewarding excellence, but it's excellence. Anyway, now I'm going on like multiple. I just have very specific grudges with how people use media votes. Anyway, the point is that yes, I think you can say breakout, because for me, how I would define it is Nneka Ogwumike she was like at her average, right? Maybe a little bit lower in some places.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
anything,
it wasn't spectacular compared to how she has performed. It wasn't spectacular compared to some other WNBA performances last year. I think we can say that. But was it better than average for what the Storm needed from her? In some ways, I think so. Even though she wasn't on equal or level footing, as you're saying, with leadership. I think something that I wrote down as you were just talking is that they can take ownership. You know, Sky and NECA now can take full ownership of a leadership role. There were a few things, including that they were new to the team, that maybe kept them away from that. And then as we reflect now with no Jewel Lloyd, perhaps, as we've talked about a lot, there wasn't a true transition and someone saying, hey, this is your team now. And maybe that's different. Maybe now NECA and Sky are coming in and they're like, hey, this is our team now. Well, because whose team is it going to be if not theirs? I mean, Ezzy is there, but her personality is not that yet. And I don't think the Storm want her to, you know, as I often say on the Gotta Get Up podcast, they were never primming and getting Ezzy ready to take over this team.
Yeah. Like they did with,
Never. I think they want her to be, I honestly, if I'm being super honest, my take on Ezzy is that the Storm need to challenge her even more. I think they've been okay with her being like a starter, but literally the 5 of the starting 5, you know, like if she was kind of in the shadows, even though doing important work, but there comes a time where you have to have a player like that really push through. And for me, Ezzy has to have that kind of a season. Even if she does, is she going to be a Jonquel Jones? What do I mean by that? If Jonquel Jones didn't score a double-double, the New York Liberty would not, she didn't average a double-double. And if there were some games, if she didn't reach a double-double, the New York Liberty are not winning, period. That's not what the Storm is asking of Ezzy. That's not what they asked of NECA last year. Maybe they should have. But now between the two of them, is NECA taking that on? Bonafide double-double Storm wins? Or is that Ezzy's job? Is that now Sky's job? Is that Gabby's job? You see what I'm saying? And that's I'm using the New York Liberty because obviously we have a podcast. We cover that team. We know that team. I know that team. But it's the same. What happens if Nafisa Collier doesn't hit, you know, a certain threshold? What happens when Asia Wilson doesn't hit a certain threshold? I guess for me right now, that's my biggest question for the Storm. Who is their rock?
And I think that's a really good question. And it even as we talked to Noel Quinn today, it wasn't, there wasn't like Skylar. It wasn't like NECA. It was Skylar and NECA. Yeah. So are they looking to are they looking for that to be a combined, you know, unit that's going to be dual leadership? Maybe that's where they're coming from. Maybe that's what they want. Yeah.
And I think that's fine. That's really fine to do because again, we see that with other teams as well. I think it just has to be a true commitment from the organization, but they need to know also who their X factor is, who's coming off of the bench to be someone that's going to get it done for them. And I mean, in fairness, this is a new look to the roster. Training camp literally started like hours ago. But I think there's time. There's definitely time to answer these questions. And out of now 13 teams, there are some teams that those questions are answered already. You know, and those teams that have those things sorted are closer to contenders than some of the others. But I mean, we saw what Indiana was able to do with a brand new rookie point guard. Did take some time, did take some adjustment. And then they restructured their front office really and their executive office to acquiesce. I don't want to say acquiesce, to get the organization wasn't ready for Caitlin Clark in a lot of ways. And now that from the roster all the way up to the front office and again, executive positions, now they're more prepared for that. And
it's kind of like the Dallas with Paige.
right, exactly. And so Dallas was like, well, we saw what happened in Indiana. Let's get our things together. And I do think Kurt Miller's time as a bench boss or as a head coach was coming to a close. This was a good transition. I think a good time for him. I do think he really understands more or less, because he's been a GM, I guess, GM head coach in Connecticut. I think that's going to be interesting. And so again, are the Storm in a good enough position to really be that? I think this is the year that not all of the questions are going to be answered, but they have to shore up who their go-to is. And that's what happened with the New York Liberty in 2024, right? Sandy Brondello had to commit to, as Craig is saying, putting her 5 best players on the court. She did that. Maybe at times people like myself, I'm raising my hand, said that she maybe overworked them, but she needed to know what they could do together before integrating other elements.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this year is going to be for the Storm, is that they're really going to put their starting 5 to the test to see what it is that they have, what they can work with, how they can mold it. And then if they figure that out, or if they maybe even don't get the response and the answers that they want while trying to figure that out, then that's when you start seeing your 6th player, your 7th player, your 8th player off of the bench, figuring out what those roles are.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting. What
It's
else?
going to be, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on. What are you going to ask?
I was just going to say, I wanted to come back to, since you were boots on the ground. I mean, you mentioned that, Noel Quinn talked about leadership with NECA and Sky. What else was she saying with regard to this team? I mean, we know it was the first training camp session altogether, a first official one, right? What else was coming from Noel Quinn?
Yeah, I am opening my notes here. Of course, people asked about how she coming back, from a very tumultuous off season. I mean, there was no way that wasn't going to be asked. She did say that someone asked, "Are you happy that you get to now like focus on basketball?" and she was like, yeah, I'm glad that I can put that, to the back and like do basketball and start anew. We heard that also in the media availability a little after they we thought they were finished with their free agency, and then 2 days after the press conference, Katie Lou was announced, and both Noel Quinn and Lisa Ria mentioned how they were ready to move to the next page and put everything behind them. And we heard that from Noel Quinn today. She's very focused on the team, the basketball, the now, to help their players develop in a way that they're going to make to help the team win. The goal of the team is win right now. That's why we saw some very specific moves. That's why we have some like sure things, players who are going to contribute right now. That's why they brought in Skylar last season. They brought NECA. They're keeping Ezzy. They brought Alicia Clark. They're bringing Katie Lou Samuelson, which, even though she has been inconsistent, I think that she is a really good addition, and her potential is there. That's the thing. Her potential is there. It needs to be unlocked. We did see that overseas. She has always done so well overseas. We didn't see her. Did we see her play at all in Arrival?
I saw her, yes. I talked about it a little bit. I just don't think that she looked great to start.
Yeah.
In particular. Yeah. I think she's a bit of a question mark for me. Again, the consistency hasn't really been there throughout her career. I think that you want her in the lineup because of how she can shoot. And it goes back to something that Craig said, and they also clarified. But put your 5 best players on the floor, but what Craig was thinking is not getting caught up on the 2 guard, and honestly, this is what I think that the Storm can do, and so Craig is saying actually put Malonga out there. Sky,
Mm-hmm.
Gabby, Nneka, Ezzy, and Dominique Malonga. Moni's saying that's a big lineup,
Ooh,
but
it is.
it could cause problems for other teams. And there's a few reasons why I like this conversation that's happening in our chat right now. One is because yes, put your 5 best on the floor. And if you happen to be heavy in the front court, then when you go up against teams like, I guess, Atlanta now with Brittany Griner, when you go up against teams like wait, is Bree Jones? Bree Jones is also in Atlanta, right?
I think
From
so.
Connecticut, I think so. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely for Atlanta. I'm with you, Craig. Let's put this lineup in.
Oh yeah.
But look, think about some of the bigs that cause issues, or if you think about a Jonquel Jones. Jonquel Jones is also really interesting because she does what you were talking about with regard to AC, and in a big way. She's a 5 that was knocking down not just random
Yeah.
three-pointers, but like clutch three-pointers for the New York Liberty in the finals, not like in some
Mm-hmm.
random Commissioner's Cup game. But if you can get Malunga in a big lineup like that with the starters, that I like. I don't think it's going to be right away. I don't think you're going to be able to rely on it right away, but that could be a lot of fun. I think
Yeah.
similarly, if you have Katie Lou Samuelson, Lexi Brown, and AC at some point in time, however you want to put it, in the same roster, on the same on the floor at the same time, excuse me. That is an interesting lineup because you are stretching that defense big time.
Yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
obviously taking a chance depending on who else is out there with them, but if all 3 of those players can shoot the way that we know they can, that can cause problems as well. So, yeah, I think it's what Craig is saying, put your 5 best players on the floor. I don't know what that
Mm-hmm.
is right now, but what Craig said, and again, this conversation exactly is where Moni is going with it now.
Yeah.
We see a lot of different lineups because Gabby Lee and Dom will be out for national team obligations, but I think also because they've done a little bit of what the New York Liberty have done, and they have players that can play various positions and pretty well.
Yeah, Moni actually took the words out of my mouth because what I was going to say next is that I see a year in which we're not gonna see just one starting 5 for the Storm. I
Mhm.
think it's going to be a case by case, game by game. So let's say when the Storm plays Dallas and Vegas, where they have 2 strong shooting guards, maybe they are going to put Alicia Clark more on the defensive effort because the Storm might not have the shooting to match the opposing team, but Alicia Clark does have a very solid advantage over those players
Mhm.
defensively. Um, and we're talking like Atlanta also. So they're going to be, and I agree with Moni. I think the constants are going to be Sky, Ezzy, and Nneka. I
Mhm.
see those 3 as starters, not counting. I don't really count national team obligations because those players are not going to be on the bench. They're not going to be playing at all. So I think that for all the games that Gabby plays, I think she's going to be a starter.
Mhm.
When we look at her stat sheet, it's going to be games played, games started. I think Gabby is going to start all of her games, but I do see when she's out, Alicia Clark taking her starting position. I
Okay.
think that's a good, and I think that's a really good backup for the Storm. Alicia Clark, she still has a lot to give in this league.
This is interesting, and I
Hmm.
love this comment because I am going back and forth on whether I think Malunga will start. Will she start at ever? Will she start immediately? Will she start somewhere? But LJ, Lauren Jackson, started immediately. Stewie started immediately. I think Malunga is on this level. And Moni, I think, is replying to Craig saying, oh, definitely. Okay, here's where we got to break this down. When you take a Dominique Malunga at number 2, do we feel that there's an obligation to then start a second overall pick? So who was second overall last year? I'm not going to remember.
Cameron Brink.
Oh, injury. So we can't focus on that.
So, and Camila was also injured, so she didn't start until.
She was 3rd overall. Okay. Well, we know Satu Sabale was the 2nd overall pick. She started immediately. Also dealt with some injury. I mean, again, when you're looking at Dallas and Indiana and their picks, you kind of have to pick and choose which season you're going to look at to see if you can figure it out. But yeah, I think, yes, exactly. Right. She did.
Yeah, she did start. Yeah.
And we don't have a full trajectory is mostly what I meant. If you start Malunga, I guess the question becomes, then does that leave Ezzy as the odd woman out? Is that fair? NECA, I don't foresee you opting to bring NECA Ogumike off the bench. You're not going to bring Gabby Williams off the bench. Skylar doesn't make sense. They're not even the same. You're not going to have Malunga play the point guard. So that means that the competition is really probably between Ezzy and Dom. And honestly, I'm here for it. I am.
Yeah. Is it my turn to talk? Don't want to cut you.
No, I'm sorry. I was just reading Moni's comments here. Go ahead, though. You say what you
want. I think that Malunga's case is a little bit different because she's only 19 years old.
That's true.
We're talking about a 19-year-old who has FIBA experience, but she doesn't have WNBA experience.
Yep.
It is a different type of game. She has advantages because she has played on the professional level at such a young age, but it's also the adaptation may take a few games, and that's something that every FIBA player goes through. Every time that you start something new, you have to adapt things. So I do think that Malunga is going to have a buffer period. I think that putting her as a starter might not set her up for success because
I can see that.
Yeah, I think that starting her from the bench, letting her learn and giving her time is going to work better for her in the long run, because we also don't want to cause, a rookie to halt her potential because they're putting her to start right away. So I don't see her starting for that reason. She is very, very young. I mean, there are no 19 years old in the league. Ezzy is proven. Ezzy knows how it works, and she would learn from Ezzy. That's how I see it.
I think these two, their development goes hand in hand. I really do believe that. I also believe, and I'm even hesitant to say it, because I don't know Ezzy personally, obviously. I've only spoken to her a few times. So this is clearly from watching her game and then the conversations that we have had. Ezzy, it's kind of like the Marine Johannes question that I have. Both great players, fantastic players, Olympians, game changers, truly game changers. And there is a level of assertiveness, of just that inner dog, sandpaper, moxie, whatever you want to call it, that I question when it comes to Ezzy, in the same way that I question when it comes to Marine Johannes. And for me, that's what could leave Ezzy. That's going to be the difference. If Ezzy can turn that on more than we've seen, that's the difference between her being a WNBA starter with a multiple all-star long career versus becoming a WNBA role player, which she already is. and she can have a long career doing that as well. If Seattle wants Ezzy as a part of their future plans, I think that they have to create and foster a culture that embraces competition, which it seems like they already have, but specifically really making sure that Ezzy and Dom are pushing to be at their best. And yes, Ezzy is the proven one. She's the veteran. She should, in a lot of ways, get the benefit of the doubt. And this is maybe more about Noel Quinn than it is honestly about the roster. Is Noel Quinn, is the front office prepared to, if it's Dom that steps up at any point in the season, are they willing and able to give her the starts over Ezzy? Or is it like Moni says, and Lexi is the odd woman out, and you just put Ezzy and Dom in the starting lineup, and then you don't have to worry about it.
And then you would put NECA like on, is it 3? Because there's that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she's a 3.5.
Yeah. I think that the Storm has a good problem on their hands, which is they have really good front court players who they're gonna have to learn how to manage their time. They do have it. It does help that Malonga is young, so she does have some developing to do. And we're not talking about 20-something young. We're talking about 19-year-old coming to a whole new country for something completely new. So I think there is a grace period that Malonga deserves to be set up for success. Because we don't want her to be a starter and then not produce according to people's expectations. And we know how that can be like a very quick downfall for rookies, unfortunately. I feel that also kind of what happened to Katie Lou Samuelson. She quickly became a bench player and a role player. So
there's definitely a balance. But it goes back to what I was kind of getting at earlier, is that when you are a first round pick, and when you are the number 1 or the number 2 pick, maybe we say through 5 just to be kind, but if you go 1 or 2 in the WNBA, people are expecting big things from you. And so if you are that kind of a player needs to play. Shooters don't shoot. Elite players are going to be elite. And my concern, and again, maybe this is more of something that really I'm saying I'm keeping an eye on Noel Quinn and the coaching staff for. You need to give Malonga reps if that's what she needs. You need to give Malonga room to grow if that's what she needs. But what you can't do is overcook her in either category. Because to me, it's not clear cut. It's not clear cut. Oh, she's 19. She needs time. This chick won a silver medal against the United States. And let me tell you, that was a knockdown, drag out game. And
it was.
So she has that experience. You can't hold you can't water the plant too much, right? Because then you'll suffocate.
True. That's fair.
Leave it. You can't give them no water, and then so it's like that. I am a little concerned that Seattle won't get the balance right, but again, there's potential because there's not a natural 2 guard. So it's easier probably to say, hey, let's cut down Lexi's minutes if that's who you're going with at 2, to open up space for either Ezzy, but probably Malonga. I just think that the Seattle Storm, first and foremost, need to be very clear with their players. I hope that they are clear every step of the way and talking to them about that, so that you don't have a situation that becomes what it was last year. That they have to be clear, and they also have to be nimble. I mean, I think Craig here is talking about Malonga. She's coming here to play, and you drafted her as the number 2 pick. To me, that doesn't sound like, in theory, it shouldn't be a player that you really need to keep training wheels on.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what they need to do, then was that the right pick? I think maybe that's what I'm really coming to.
Yeah.
And you don't have to play her for 35 minutes, but playing her for less than 5 is not an option for me.
That's what we were talking. Well, that's what we were discussing, right? She is the right pick, but when you have Malonga, like she is and a player who you just can refuse. But is she what you need right now? And that was not the case for the Storm. They had a player in front of them that they just couldn't pass. It would be like a major like history flake to just let Dominic Malonga pass. So it's like that. It's a very tricky situation to be in because again, going back to that media availability during free agency that Talisa Rios said, with our number 2 pick in the draft, we want a player who can help us win in the long run and immediately. I think that Dominic Malonga can do both.
Yeah, you gotta
the thing is that, like, are you going to let her develop enough that she can continue winning in the future, or are you going to try to put her in immediately? That's where that's where I feel like that encapsulates our conversations of who the Storm was going to pick in the draft. They did draft Dominic as number 2, so someone, usually you expect the number 2 to play right now, but that's Dominic is not the player that, like, if we're talking about really, really, really need, that's not what the Storm really, really, really needed right now. But she's someone,
but it's who they have. But it's who they have. And I mean, sure, they need a shooting guard, but if it's between Malonga and Brown, I'm starting Malonga.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because you know what? Let's keep it funky. I could be wrong about how Lexi Brown is able to bounce back this year, but is she someone that was a need?
I think it all comes down to Olivia Miles. No one expected Olivia Miles not to declare, so that I feel like that really caught everyone off guard, and that kind of like made the Storm's off-season moves go a little like, so I think that is something that always needs to be that needs to be taken into consideration. It doesn't take away the responsibility from a front office to know that if a player has not declared yet, they are guaranteed. But they also made a choice with Malonga. Like we're saying, there's no way you can take her, but like you could not take her. If you're not and so I do think they're in a situation where they're gonna have to make some tough choices. I gotta say, if you don't start Lexi in order to start Malonga and put NECA on the 3, she's not going to be on the Storm's going to have to do something that they're not. They're going to be with like
3. Gabby would
no, but we're talking about you're going to take Lexi out of the rotation to fit Malonga. So that would be Skylar, Gabby, Malonga, Ezzy, and NECA. How are you going to play them as starters? What would be? How would you like if you put on your coaching hat? Like,
I mean, this is again where like the hybrid whatever. Okay, between those 3, Malonga can carry the ball. I don't. I mean, you don't. Gabby becomes your 2/3. As far as, let me put it this way. Other than Skylar, who's managing the ball in that lineup? Gabby Williams. I think we can all agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's who's managing the ball. That's the only reason you really need a 2 in that lineup, because then everyone else, you're running an offense that's going to put them in a position to score where they score best. Now, if you want to talk about what does that look like defensively, then you have to figure that. But I would say then Gabby plays more of the defensively, whoever the other 2 guard is, probably. And then Nneka, then you decide between Nneka, Ezzy, and Dom, who you want, wherever you want the matchup. But again, Gabby gives you the versatility there. I'd have to see Malunga move. I want to see her footwork again. When I was watching the Olympics, I was not very focused on her feet, but I'd want to see her footwork again. Ezzy has good footwork, and there's a little bit, I think it's maybe the instincts where she's a little bit hesitant at times, but it's not because she moves slow, like her body is able, but I think she just has to she has to perfect her instincts, I think is how I want to say it. I need to see Dominique Malunga's instincts to figure that out. Nneka can shoot the 3, Gabby can shoot the 3, Malunga can shoot the 3, she can dunk. I think, and then what you do is your first player off the bench, if that's what you're doing, if Lexi, honestly, for me, the first player off the bench, if that's what you do, is AC.
Yeah. I agree. Now, for me, the first player off the bench is AC, 100%.
Yeah, and especially if you go with a bigger lineup, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we are not even counting Lee. So there's also Lee Yuru.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a very eye test person. I need to see how she interacts. But again, this is a Storm team that has to figure out their starting lineup before they can do anything else.
Yes.
I guess as we continue talking, I thought I had questions about the bench, but I think honestly my questions are about the starting lineup.
I agree with you.
Yeah, right? Like at first I was like, what are they going to do about the bench? And I was like, wait, hold on, wait a minute. What are they going to do? Yeah, what are they gonna do? Well, depending. What are they going to do about the starting 5? Okay, here's the truth of it. Probably already have picked this up for our listeners and for you, Roberta. I'm not sold on Brown. I'm not sold on Katie Lou.
I'm more sold on Katie Lou than Lexi.
And
I've seen more from Katie Lou than Lexi.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm just not sure either way. I think Erica Wheeler, her insurance is that she becomes that surefire backup to Skylar Diggins. Now, Erica Wheeler, I thought had lapses in Indiana when she played that role. And inconsistencies. We know she can play that role, and it didn't work out particularly well, in my opinion, in Indiana, comparative to some other teams that she's been on. Indiana with Caitlin Clark. So I think you're still okay there. Not perhaps, impenetrable, surefire, locked up, but I think you're okay with Erica Wheeler there. I think the task for Erica Wheeler and Skylar Diggins to an extent, but especially Erica Wheeler, is, since you said Nika is around, pouring into Nika and Nika absorbing just like she said she did last year. I think that becomes critical because you're going to want Nika if you keep her in the pipeline.
I'm a strong Erica Wheeler believer. I gotta say, maybe that's true of fault, but I'm a Wheeler believer.
A Wheeler believer. We believe in Wheeler.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it. I think Wheeler for me is a more solid, sure thing than Lexi Brown and Katie Lou Samuelson. This is just based off of last season in particular. I think you can definitely look at the full breadth of work, and you have a lot of different things, but if I'm just going off of last season, I mean, I kind of said the same thing about AC, right? It was an off year for AC, an off year for Vegas. And so you want to see a bounce back there for sure. But I just think what you get defensively from AC, we talked about it when we were both at the last home game last year in Seattle. Yeah. And we were talking about, I remember that team playing Vegas, who then they of course saw in the first round.
Oh, I remember that.
If they had the ability to get a few more stops, while also having the ability to convert on just a few more buckets, that game is totally different. But there were times where they were able to really get it done, and then there were times where they just fell flat. That's my concern, is that and again, I think it's more of a coaching staff concern. They have to learn how to hit in waves and not just all at once. I mean, sometimes you do have to hit all at once, but I think the issue with the Seattle Storm last year was that they would have a big wave and then then they would regress. They didn't have someone who, while that first attack was tired or hurt or whatever, they didn't have someone that could like keep attacking or at least keep them level. That's yes, they need more points, but that is my point. Yes, they need more points. Yes, they need more stops, and I think they'll get more defensive stops. But you also need to score at times when your starters or when your go-to people are getting rest, or they're in foul trouble, or they're out of the game because they're hurt. Like that, again, is something that Seattle needs to figure out. And you talked about it, right? The timeline for them is now, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Long term as well. And I think that, I mean, we still have to get through some expansion drafts, but they have enough pieces that they can definitely play with in the long term. But what is it going to look like now?
Yeah, that now is well, just saying like as is. If they want a championship team, they need to figure some things out. Right now, without figuring out their starting lineup and still having that gap on the shooting guard position, it's not a championship team, you know. And they have to figure all of that out in order to get there, because they have big questions. They brought in big names. They drafted a big name. They have big names on the bench. They're gonna have to manage that very well in order to win now, in order to get the result that they want now, because 13 teams, only one team wins. Only one team gets to the final. You have to, only two teams get to the final. Well, two. Only two teams get to the final. So you need to have, do you have enough pieces to beat all of the other 12 teams that are trying to make it? And you have to you need to have the best option available at the moment, you know, and the Storm right now does not have the best option available in a thing or two.
You know what I just thought? And I feel like I've been slowly walking myself into this, but then I just remembered that you and I have talked about this before. Again, the concerns, I think, as I talk it out more, are more so how the coaching staff is going to manage this, which then becomes maybe the obvious question that it's time to ask now before we wrap up today's episode is Noel Quinn the right coach to get this team to win now, in the intermediate or short term, and or in the long term? Is she all of those? Is she none of those? Is she one over the other two? Could she be maybe two of the three? I think that the reset from the Jewel Lloyd situation, I think the organization has embraced that fully and they're ready to move forward. You talked about it. Now it becomes, can Noel Quinn make the right coaching choices in this moment? And I don't know that we have the answer yet. This is a different roster, presumably, hopefully for her sake. The dynamics are different with this team, but I do think she becomes a question mark, dare I say, an X factor for this Storm team as well.
I think that, you know, that's the big question mark, because in my point of view, this is the first Noel Quinn team, the first team that has fully and completely being assembled by Noel Quinn. Of course, we have the general managers, but when we're talking about the coach in charge, and the coach does have have like a big weight on decision making. I feel like this is the first Noel Quinn team in the Seattle Storm. All of the other years, it was Sue Bird's team, it was Jewel Lloyd's team. Now it's Noel Quinn's team. More than it is Skylar Diggins and Neka Ogumake's team. So I think that this is her chance and opportunity to show what her coaching style is, to show what she wants, what she is as a basketball coach in the WNBA. So this is a big season for her. All the like in 2022, the Storm didn't make it to the final because honestly, who was beating the Aces? Like no one was beating the Aces. Last year, transition year, then the offseason proved that it was tough. So right now, there isn't really any like lingering issues to be like, oh, but that's why the coaching didn't work. This year, it's like Noel Quinn is in charge. It's her team. We're going to know her coaching style for sure, especially since we've already seen some of it in the past year. So this is her chance to showcase what kind of coach she wants to be in the WNBA and which like who she is as a coach who completely owns the team.
Yeah, I think, yep, I'm with you 100%. I think it's interesting that you talk about, you know, some of the big names that, you know, they took on the mantle, so to speak, to really get that Seattle team together. And yeah, I think you're right. Because I'm thinking, well, whose team is it going to be from a player's perspective? But maybe that is the answer, that it's Noel Quinn's team. And that's who, and like, duh, obviously head coach, but let's be real. Okay. Let's be real in sports. I think we can look to maybe Indiana, right? That you have a head coach and then you have generational talents, players that are not going to be denied, whether it's you throw all 5 defenders at them or you know, coaching staffs, ownership, whatever. They are just going to take over a game because that's what they know to do. Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird are both that player on opposite sides of the personality spectrum, I would argue, but ruthless when it comes to I know what my team needs and I know that I can do it, so that's what I'm going to do. And there's a lot of different ways to approach that, right? But yeah, Noel is still a young coach and she is a growing coach. You know, I know Greg didn't put those two together, but young and growing, I think, are perfect descriptors of what Noel Quinn has. And I think also what we saw, even though I think it came out in a way that she probably didn't want 100%, we saw that Noel, I mean, she's from LA, okay? She's from
She
Cali.
herself said she's a gangster.
Come on. And we saw a little gangster. Like, listen, I could be a little hood. I'm also, I present much differently, I think, than Noel Quinn for most people. But there's a part of me that's very cool, calm, and relaxed. I'm just going to put this on me because I don't want to. Like, well, I'm just saying, because people see me, I think there are people who see me as loud, and I can be very loud. I can be very opinionated, all of those things. And there's another part of my personality where when I'm not with a microphone in my face and a camera in front of me, I'm a very different personality. I'm very calm. I'm very cool. That's like my natural state. You know, I think Noel Quinn got a little bit of, you know, her gangsta activated last year, I'll say. And I don't think she was completely ready for that. I think she wanted to kind of control her gangsta for like very specific, but it kind of came out a little bit. And some of the challenges that we would hear after post game, you know, I think that she was exercising that part of her personality. And I think now that a little bit of that has come out, I'm hopeful for her sake that there's more of a balance, that she realizes that that edginess that she's had as a player and the edginess and the intensity that she brings to what she does as a coach, there's an element of that that is necessary all throughout. It's not about only saving it for certain moments. Sometimes you really, as a coach, need to know, oh, I got to get in this official's face because if I do it, one, then one of my star players doesn't have to do it. And two, my team is going to get motivated. Corey Close said this during the NCAA tournament. She said that she was getting loud on the sideline because that was her indicator and her signal to Kiki Rice. Hey, you're not being loud enough. You're not being intense enough. So I'm going to do it now, but you have to figure out how to do it. And I think that's what I want to see Noel Quinn. I want to see her find her balance there. Because if you watch her on the sidelines, she's not a quiet, passive coach all of the time.
No.
She's not a Cheryl Reeve.
It's funny because I've been thinking about Cheryl Reeve the whole time.
She's not a Cheryl Reeve, right? She's not a Kurt Miller. Those two.
A Becky Hammond.
Right. Well, even Becky has like a stoic. Becky's more like at the Pat Summitt level, but that's a whole different genre. That's a whole different level of coaching.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's Becky Hammond, Pat Summitt are intense, and they're also intense when they say nothing, almost more intense. And then you get really scared. You're like, oh, I really messed up now. You know what I'm saying?
It makes me think.
That's like a whole nother level of mind games.
Oh, you know that video that Asia and Sid Carlson are on the bench, like dancing, and they say, "Becky coming, Becky coming," and they just
exactly, Becky's coming, because she just kind of looks at you like, "What are we doing right now?"
Yeah, and they waited, and we're talking about Asia and Sid Carlson, who literally care about
nothing, absolutely nothing. Everything is unserious to them. But that's what I'm saying.
Sorry,
like, a whole nother level. No, it's fine. Noel Quinn and Sandy Brondello. She reminds me more of Sandy Brondello. Sandy Brondello kind of like frantically yells, and you never really know if the players are actually listening to her, because she's just kind of like, it just is like, sometimes I look down at Sandy Brondello and I'm like, who are you?
And then she stumbles on Joan Quaidro.
Oh no, that was so bad.
Top 5 WNBA
oh
moments
my
in history.
god, just took her out. She's just kind of yelling, and then she gets in a huddle, or she gets in a, and she's so focused. I think Noel Quinn is figuring out what her different levels are and when she needs to. And that's an art form. That's a skill that you develop over time. Craig keeps saying, she's a young coach. She is. She's a newer coach. She was working under Dan Hughes, who's one of the names in the WNBA. I mean, newer fans might not know, but Dan Hughes, Sandy Brondello, Cheryl Reeve, there's like Cheryl Reeve and Sandy are the bridge, right? From the Dan Hughes era to the new era.
Yeah.
But I just think that this has to be a breakout year for Noel Quinn. I
agree with you.
He should be in the hot seat based on last year, but I think the eyes are definitely on her. And I think
100%.
We talked about it, right? Because with all of the coaching changes that were made last season, I kept saying, I don't think Noel Quinn should lose her job. And she's not a top, in my opinion, she's still not a top. She's not a top 3 head coach in the league. Top 5, I think she could get there. I think she could get there. I just don't think we know yet what her potential is.
Yeah, and we talked about it, in my opinion, the first half of the season last year. I saw her as a coach of the year candidate. And I stand by it. I still think that had she had like full power, full control of the team, the Storm could have gone further and she would still be on that conversation. If she is able to keep the same level, a little bit higher than the first half of last season, she's going to be there. But again, there are so many chances that a coach can be given. There's, and if we're talking about experience, she's not. So her fourth year, if we're comparing like to player like rookie years and everything, she's getting into the veteran pace, so
exactly.
it's a responsibility. So I think it's this year she has to put her team on the top 4. That's my opinion. I know people talk about the Indiana Fever, but the Storm has top 4 potential.
Okay, so is that, dare I say, a too early to tell prediction that you're making, maybe? Because because I think you might have some others, Roberta, that we should talk about before we close out the show. All right.
So I have others, but I like that one.
That one is good. I mean, you said Coach of the Year candidate last year. Whether Coach of the Year candidate or not, I think that she has to perform. She's got to level up this year. I agree with you. I like how you're saying, like, this is her team. This is really the team that she can mold and put her mark on. And she's going to have to start doing that if she wants to be a coach, not just for the Storm, but that stays in the WNBA, because Moni alluding to the new coaches, there's a lot of new blood. And I think my take on that is that people saw the New York Liberty win. They saw, the quote unquote Caitlin Clark effect. And I do think that as time pans out, we will see that some of these organizations overcorrected, in my opinion. Chicago. But
oh my God, don't get me started.
I think she has to make her mark. Okay. Who are other players? We'll close out with this because we've talked about this for what feels like months now. So I want to know if your takes are the same, but some, too soon to tell, too early predictions for the Storm. Who do you think from this Seattle Storm roster is going to be in a position to win some individual hardware?
Skylar, no. Nekogumake. Ezzy, I think she can go for the MIP. Ezzy can go for the MIP. Neka can go for MVP. Gabby or Skylar can go for the DPOI.
Oh, not AC?
No.
Oh, okay.
AC can go for Sixth Woman of the Year.
Sixth woman. Okay.
And if we're talking about...
I literally wrote about this a few years ago, and I think I'm overdue to write about it again. But okay, so MIP, Ezzy,
MVP,
Neka,
defense,
DPOY. You said Gabby or Sky.
Sixth Woman of the Year, Alicia Clark. Sky for All-Star.
Sky for All-Star. I mean, but she shouldn't be the only one. Malunga,
no.
Rookie of the Year.
She can. If she has enough playtime.
That's the thing for me. I think a lot of people are going to say Paige will win outright. I think similarly to how I thought for most of last year until Angel Reese got hurt, I think that everyone's going to look for Paige to get it. Malunga could be in a really good position if she gets the playing time. Now, are you going to play her just so she wins Rookie of the Year? No. And you don't want someone who could contend for Rookie of the Year to be sitting on your bench, I guess is just what I'm saying. But I feel like we beat that down. All right, let us know in the comments. Do you think any players can win individual awards? We've got Roberta on the record saying that Nick is going to be a contender for MVP. We have Ezzy going to be a contender for most improved player. AC,
I have to write that down.
I got it. I got it here.
Okay.
AC is going to be a contender for sixth player of the year. And then Gabby or Skylar Diggins in the running for defensive player of the year. Can you tell I'm
really for rookie?
And for rookie. I love this. I'm excited.
Bring the hype.
I'm excited to see Malunga play for real. I'm super excited. And I really hope it pans out. But I mean, it's going to be an exciting year. It's definitely a year where a lot of questions will be answered about the Seattle Storm one way or another. And if you want to know how I think the Storm will fare alongside my other co-host, Brian Florenton, make sure you tune in to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We are going to be going live tomorrow night, stay tuned. We'll post the YouTube link shortly after we close here. But Brian and I are actually not going to just talk about the New York Liberty or the Seattle Storm. We're going to talk about all 13 WNBA teams competing in this upcoming season, and we are ranking them. I'm going to tell you the rankings, or we're going to categorize them, I should say. We're going to categorize them. There's 3 categories. Contender. That means they are not just making the playoffs, but they are a team that can truly contend, be one of the 2 teams, right, in the WNBA finals. So we've got our contenders, we've got our category that's going to make the playoffs. So maybe they're not an immediate contender, but they definitely will be one of the top 8 teams in the league. And then we have the wait till next year category. So where do you think Brian and I will put the Seattle Storm? Well, again, you can tune in tomorrow. That's something fun that Brian and I are going to do. But Roberta, since you will not be on that recording with Brian and I'm going to have you categorize the Seattle Storm and then 2 other WNBA teams any way that you'd like. So first, tell us the team. So you're going to pick the Seattle Storm, and what other 2 teams do you want to talk about?
Okay, so what are it's contenders, so it's 2
contenders. Okay. Well, you can say you definitely have to, the way Brian and I are doing it, definitely have to have 8 teams that are either labeled contender or are labeled make the playoffs. Right? So you can be a contender and not necessarily mean that it's the final 2, but you give the team like a really good chance to make a finals run. Make the playoffs is, again, there'll be a top 8 team at the end of the regular season. A wait till next year is they're not making the playoffs. Okay, so you're gonna pick the Seattle. You're gonna do the Seattle Storm, and you get 2 other teams.
Hold on, I'm just opening the names again here of the teams. So Seattle Storm, New York Liberty. Okay. Jesus Christ, the names are just disappearing from my head. Okay. I want to say Minnesota. I was gonna say Minnesota, but my head kept saying Washington.
Minnesota Lynx. That's okay. Okay, so you're gonna take those 3 teams: Seattle, New York, and Minnesota.
Yes. Okay,
let's start with Minnesota. Do you have them as a contender, making the playoffs, or wait till next year?
No. Can I choose other teams? So I want to choose Seattle, Minnesota, and Indiana.
Okay, in Indiana. So start with Minnesota.
I want to fight today. Minnesota contender.
Okay. Indiana.
Playoffs.
Okay.
No. Seattle next year.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so where do you rank Seattle?
Playoffs.
Okay. So that's interesting. I can tease it a little. Let me see. I have Indiana making the playoffs for sure. Okay. But I also have the other 2 teams at minimum making the playoffs. One of them is a contender. I'm not going to say which one. You'll have to tune in tomorrow. But one of the 3 teams that you mentioned, I have as a contender. But it's not Indiana because I just said what Indiana is. So
from those 3 teams, like
that's interesting. You don't think Indiana's making the playoffs this year?
Well, from the 3 teams, I think I was a little flustered making my choices. But I do think
you didn't have to pick one of the 3 categories. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I messed it all up. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
I spoiled the fun.
That's okay. So do you think Indiana is making the playoffs this year?
I think they're making the playoffs, but I think they are in a New York Liberty situation in which they have a really good team that's going to win a championship, but not this year. I think that they're going to have some struggles this year, that they're going to go like first round of the playoffs because of how the other teams are preparing. They are making the playoffs, but they're not winning this year.
Yeah, this is interesting. Think about the vibe around here when Jewel asked for the trade compared to now with the trade we got and the draft. So I don't know exactly what Craig feels the vibe is, but what do you feel the vibe is? At the point where we heard that Lloyd wanted out, the lowest of the low, arguably, since Stewie left, probably. And now thinking about how you think the Seattle fan base feels now that they have Malunga at 2 and are seeing what this roster is. What are your thoughts?
The feel that I have is that everyone is over it. It just feels like everyone is ready for basketball. Everyone is ready for wins. And as much as Jewel was adding in terms of like points, she wasn't adding to the win per se. So fans understand that, you know, it was her time to go to another team, and everyone is the free agency moves and the draft really lifted the spirit of fans here in Seattle, and I can tell that people are excited.
Craig agrees. Craig agrees. All right, everyone. Well, that's going to be our show. Again, Brian and I will rank all 13 teams, or categorize them, not rank, categorize them in the 3 categories. Wait till next year, playoff bound or a true contender. You can listen to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Tomorrow night, we will be going at 7:30 Eastern time. So what is that?
4:30 here.
4:30, right? Because it's 3 hours from Eastern time. Okay, 5:30 Central if you're in Central like me. But yes, I'm excited. I do think that you and Craig are correct. Sentiment completely different. And I wasn't sure when all the stuff with Jewel Lloyd was going down. I wasn't sure how the team was going to bounce back. I think for the most part, they kind of kept their head down, weathered the storm, so to speak, waited until they got through the investigation, and then ready to turn the page. Now that they've turned the page, though, there's still a lot that this team has to accomplish to be what they say they want to be, which is a perennial playoff team, a team that's competing for championships. But we get to see them in action this season. Roberta Rodrigues and Erica L. Ayala, we will have you weekly. So we recorded this week on a Sunday. This is how it's going to go. So we're getting back into our weekly swing. Most of the shows will be on Wednesday nights. However, Sunday is our secondary day, and we'll do the same for Gotta Get Up. But most of the time, we will be recording on a Wednesday, and our next recording is going to be a Wednesday, May, because we're almost in May, we're days away from May.
That's crazy.
So our next recording, I know, right? And exciting, because the next recording is the day before my birthday, Wednesday, May 7th. So hey, there we go. So tourist season all the way. Now we're in the good part of tourist season. Let's go. May tourists, we're a completely different type of crazy. So
the good type, the necessary type.
Exactly. We get we get things done type. But so that's when our next recording will be. So we will be back again for Tempestage Talk. We will be back Wednesday, May 7th. We will be able to talk a little bit about, we'll have some preseason games for the league in the bag. Ugh, I know Moni said it earlier, but like the fact that we don't get more preseason games is just like, if you're lucky, you get 3 games, but
so I think I did see. I have a feeling that the Storm has a second preseason game. Maybe not.
Another thing
I thought they had.
I mean, because Cheryl Reeve went off on this last year that we don't even get televised preseason games. They only did that last year for Indiana. Wonder why. So will Dallas have theirs, so we got to look into that. But anyway, Roberta, before we get out of here, anything exciting that you have coming down the pike that you want to tell people about?
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff as the season starts. So you can find me here at Tempestage Talk every week with you. I am very excited for our weekly chats. I am also on Forbes. I have a story coming up soon. Talk to NECA today about the WNBPA reception with rookies. So I'm excited to write about that. You can find me on X with the Roberta WBB. And I also have so many things. But tomorrow I'm going to be on Fox 13 here in Seattle, live at 7:30 p.m. talking Seattle Storm.
That's awesome.
So it's gonna be my first like live TV thing, and I'm nervous but excited.
That's so
tomorrow, tomorrow is media day, so stay tuned on my socials and my Substack, and you'll find everything over there.
I love that. Excited. I freaking love that. Absolutely. A Star is Born. I love it. And my name is Erica L. Ayala. You can catch me, of course, in addition to TEMPESTADE Talk. You can catch me on Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We will be recording tomorrow night, 4:30 Pacific time. 4:30 Pacific time, 6:30 Central time, 7:30 Eastern time. I have to live on so many different time zones.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. And I will be traveling back. Home is New York for me. I will be in New York for a little bit because the ESPNW Summit is coming up again. And so
that's where we met.
That is where we reconnected. Yes.
Reconnected. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we met in where was that? In Everett?
I think so. Oh yeah, in Everett. We already chatted online.
Yes.
But then we met in Everett when I was just starting with the storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's crazy. What a time. But it's ESPNW Summit time again. So I will be on the East Coast doing that. And I'm supposed to be talking to, speaking of Seattle Kraken assistant coach Jessica Campbell. I hope she still speaks at the summit because the Kraken just fired their head coach. So I'm hoping Jessica Campbell is still there. Also, it's supposed to be the day after the announcement that we're waiting on for women's hockey. So I hope Jessica Campbell is still coming to the event, but that's the big interview that I'm looking for. But there will definitely be W players there. And we'll get to hear from Terry Carmichael Jackson, who's the head of the Players Association as well.
If I can add something, next week, Storm preseason game, May 4th. TEMPESTADE Talk will be there. So I'll be there. May the 4th, May the 2nd, I'm going to be in Baton Rouge for the Brazil-Chicago Sky game.
That's so wild.
For the Storm fans here, stay tuned. Definitely going to be talking about that game.
Indeed. All right. Well, that'll do for our episode today. Lots of questions to be answered by the Seattle Storm. The biggest is Noel Quinn up for the task. We will find out soon enough. And I, for one, have faith. But for Roberta, I'm Erica, and we will catch you on the next episode of TEMPESTADE Talk. Peace out, everybody.